Telework in Canada is on the rise. A BMO poll released this year shows the majority of Canadians, 56%, work at a company offering a work-from-home option. But Alberta is lagging in comparison, with just 49% of our province's employers taking the telework plunge. Many business owners remain leery, concerned about working from home, that it could decrease both productivity and morale in their workforce. Does working from home disconnect employees from the team? Is a home work environment conducive to productivity and focus? When is telework a good option for both employees and employers? And joining us tonight, Karen Carleton, President of Performance Solutions, and Brittany Martin, Assistant Professor of Leadership Policy and Governments at the Workland School of Education at the University of Calgary. Very pleased to have both of you. Good evening, ladies.
Thanks.
Karen, starting with you. In your experience, what is the biggest misconception about working from home?
I think the biggest misconception is that the notion that employees cannot be trusted to responsibly do the work that they've been assigned from home without the watchful eye of their supervisor.
That's the bottom line, is the trust factor to begin with.
It's the trust factor, and it's interesting because managers have long been trusted to work mobily or work remotely, and at the same time, staff haven't always had that same situation.
Well, as we mentioned, many Alberta employers, of course, are leery about considering telemarket or telework arrangements less than national average. Brittany, what are your thoughts on that? That's a lot of employers.
Well, typically we're finding that there's a resistance by the employers, mostly something that we refer to as a subconscious dismissal, where a lot aren't even giving it the full consideration, that their response to it is just that it isn't what they know, it's not what they're familiar with, and so they just don't want to do it in their companies.
Karen, you had mentioned that a big part of it is the lack of trust. Do people really need supervision to stay focused and stay on the job, though?
I don't think that they do, provided they have conditions of work that they've got the technology to help them connect, they've got specified deliverables and time frames, they've got the support to be able to do it, they're motivated, they've been selected correctly for that job. It shouldn't be any different than working under the supervision of the supervisor. However, the key factor is that they're not working with distractions, potentially, if they're working at another environment without that. So they're likely to be a lot more productive than if they're actually in an open workspace, which is typically the common workplace setting.
It is definitely. Brittany, then what are your thoughts on that? Do employees really need that constant supervision?
Well, I think supervisory fears are one of the reasons that drive people away from wanting to enable their employees to do it. But there's research out there that shows productivity increases in a teleworking environment, especially because of the reduced distractions. So I think Karen makes a great point that if you're considering a telework arrangement, you need to think about the environment that you're going to be working in. And sometimes one of the misconceptions is that it's going to be a better job for a parent in the home with younger kids, and some of the research shows that that's when it can be a challenge. But in other cases, it can be a great opportunity to provide flexibility for parents who maybe have their kids at school and need to do the pickup, or allow someone to balance their caregiving needs in different ways. So it depends on the needs in the environment.
Of course, another perspective here, let's look at it. Last year, Yahoo CEO Marissa Mayer, she banned telework in her company, citing the importance of collaboration. And that was in an internal memo, which was first published by the Wall Street Journal's technology blog, All Things D. It said, some of the best decisions and insights come from hallway and cafeteria discussions, meeting new people and impromptu team meetings. Speed and quality are often sacrificed when we work from home. We need to be one Yahoo, and that starts with physically being together. Brittany, starting with you, how do you respond to that mindset?
Yeah, I think that that rocked the world of collaboration researchers and people who look at that, because there are a lot of technology-mediated collaboration tools, and there are, of course, incredible examples of collaboration that can happen because of the internet and because of technology. So I would suggest that some of that came from her personal bias, that is the best way to collaborate, and certainly they do have a history in innovation and collaboration, but it's one way and not the only way. I think what's really important is that the way that an organization is going to collaborate needs to be negotiated and have clear guidelines on when people can get together and collaborate and how that happens. And I think it's there are a lot of technology mediated ways that can take place.
But if that's not the case with technology, some people say, well, what about that face-to-face contact and the impromptu? Karen, are employees who work from home then missing out?
I would concur with Brittany that we have the technologies. I mean, on a regular basis, most people who do knowledge work and they need to synthesize information, they benefit from having a quiet atmosphere so that they can do that critical and creative thinking. And actually, research shows that when you don't have that, you're far less productive. So for example, every time you have a distraction, whether it's a coworker's phone going off or somebody interrupting and speaking, it takes on average 15 to 20 minutes to refocus. So you have to weigh that against the face time that people are saying is so valuable. And at the same time, is that really that much different when you have someone on Skype or available at a moment's notice on instant messenger or texting or by phone? To me, I don't think so.
You don't think so. Brittany, your thoughts?
Well, just to add to that, I think that, a lot of it comes down to what the job requirements are. If your job requirement is to be a collaborative team where the individuals need to be physically in the same space, then perhaps that has some merit there. But if the job requirements, as Karen says, is a knowledge-based job that requires that incubation time to really think about what you're doing, then the off-site location can really empower and enable productivity in different and effective ways. So you really need to think about what is the role, what kind of effectiveness can I create, and then of course fit the personality profile and the person with that job as well.
Let's talk about policy, because there are a lot of concerns. We've talked about it, about trust factors and that sort of thing. So what should employers need to do? What do they really need to focus on to create the perfect work environment for this to work? Karen?
I think, in my experience, employers need to make sure that the conditions of work are in place so that, yes, this person is able to do the tasks from a different environment or mobilely. So in other words, if they need VPN access, if they need a company laptop with virus protection on it, they have that available to them. And at the same time, they should have arrangements pre-approved and worked out with their supervisor so they know that they have a specified deliverable, needs to be done at this time, handed in this way. Now, I think it might draw attention to some positions not having specified requirements of what they're actually producing. And in a sense, it could call attention more to the managers that what are they doing with those people to make sure and support and enable them to be productive in their jobs.
And our viewers can't see it, but you were nodding, Brittany. What did you want to add to that?
Well, the idea of management by objectives has been very effective in teleworking relationships. And you have to remember, too, there are all sorts of arrangements that can be made. So, the way we define telework in my field of research is it's at a different workstation outside the central office at minimum 1 day a week. So you can have someone who's just away 1 day a week catching up on, all of the email and the incredible amount of administration that people need to do, to someone who's solely working from home. And there's a wide variety of ways to make sure that from the supervisory perspective that the objectives that person was hired to achieve can be made. And then, of course, performance needs to be matched with that as well.
There are so many employees, though, that really want this, and they have to go through so much to convince their boss that this is a good idea. Is that expected, Karen? Should that be expected for an employee to do that?
I think initially, the first time you do work mobilely, I know, and in previous positions where I have been an employee, I've had to ask my supervisor and specify those conditions and work out agreements and explain that, yes, I do need to go into a quieter environment in order to focus fully and complete this work. And it was approved. Now, at the same time, I think from what Brittany was saying, that on occasion, there are some positions that will not work. It depends on hands-on, experiential. You need that person right there, such as a welder, such as somebody in childcare. But by the same token, there are positions that can be fully done at a distance. And in fact, I just met one such person yesterday. But two great examples: my accountant, he has a virtual team. He's able to notice when they've logged in, when they've logged out, check over their work, see what they've done. I have a friend who works for an Alberta-based organization, worked from home from Calgary for years, had to go home for personal reasons for a year in Saskatchewan. After that time, she was able to approve staying there. Now, she does help desk work from her home there. Do her Alberta-based clients really care that she's living in Regina? Do they know? No. They're just happy to have her help.
Just a matter of productivity, making sure the job is done. Brittany, I hear you wanting to weigh in on that too.
Well, I just wanted to add to that. It's interesting that Karen uses the language that the individual proved herself to be able to telework from Regina, and then after that was able to stay and work there, because one of the biggest challenges is in convincing the managers that it can work, but often once that can be established, then the fears seem to go away. So in organizations where it is signaled as the status quo, or where it's an acceptable practice where the leadership is also teleworking, it can really smooth out the transition process of adoption across the board. And on another point, I think it's really important that employers are paying attention to this, because in our research we found through meta-analysis that when we looked at the specific findings related to younger demographics, that it was actually, it increased organizational commitment amongst younger people. So the younger generation is coming in with different expectations than the present employees right now, and I think that the companies that are able to adapt to that and offer these kinds of working relationships are going to have higher attraction and retention with the incoming talent.
One more thing I want to touch on here. The City of Calgary has the Work Shift initiative to encourage more employers to consider telework. And one of the benefits that was pointed out, and even by Calgary's Mayor Nenshi himself, is less traffic congestion. So does research support that kind of environmental benefit? Starting with you on that one, Brittany.
Yeah, absolutely. Dr. Alain Verbeck at the Haskayne School of Business has been conducting studies that look specifically at the econometrics related to congestion, and his study also looks at teleworking in Brussels as well, which is highly congested, and shows that there are definite benefits to having a telework environment and getting people off the roads, especially during those peak times. And I know personally, as someone who teleworks from home on a regular basis, in my job, being able to not have to commute during the peak hours is very beneficial to my productivity. And that doesn't mean that I start later. I roll out of bed, pour myself a cup of coffee, and start my workday quite early in my pajamas, wait out the commute time, and then get ready and go to work. So I start a little bit later in the office space, but I've actually put in 2 to 3 hours of work already and not spent my time on the road.
Karen.
I would concur with that. And at the same time, not only are we saving the environment, but potentially the risk of having a traffic accident and the associated costs with that. In addition, myself have had a long commute and have to fight traffic early in the morning or in the evening. It's much more relaxing to just wake up, roll out of bed, and hit the ground running. So at the same time, you could have a position where you've commuted, you've gotten to work, you don't have a quiet workspace, maybe you don't have the nicest coworker sitting at the next cubicle with you. These all are conditions that lead to unhappy working or unhappy workforces. So at the same time, you want people to be engaged and retained, and they're likely to be more productive if they are offered options that would work for them.
What I'm hearing from both of you as we wrap up here, just if it works for you, speak well with your employer, and hopefully you can get a good arrangement there.
Yes.
Thank you very much, both of you. Good discussion. That is Karen Carleton. She is President of Performance Solutions. And from the University of Calgary tonight, Brittany Martin, Assistant Professor of Leadership Policy and Government at the Workland School of Education there.